Home, the gold.
He could be too far. No, he's kicking. Oh, what a catch!
Puts a spicy forehand out in front of Naomi Morcilla.
Woo for the win. Team Canada. Garrett Woo!
Santos with the layout grab.
Oh, that fantastic grab. The claws of Chaffer.
Canada just became the world champions.
Yo, yo, yo. Canada and the rest of the world, you're listening to the Huckin podcast. We're fired up. UCI Senior just happened. I'm Theo from Toronto, Ontario, with my co-host from
Vancouver, BC. Oh, my name is also Danie Proby. Nice to meet you all. I'm also fired up. It's very exciting to be here. We are your coast-to-coast guide to all things Canadian Ultimate. Speaking of Canadian Ultimate, we just got back from UCI, as did most of you. So this episode is going to be a sick recap of everything that happened this weekend. But first, Theo, how was it meeting me in person for the first time?
I mean, I'm going to be honest with you. I thought you were going to be maybe a little bit taller. I thought you were hyped up to be like maybe 6 feet tall, but I realized that wasn't true. But yeah, the height was like good. I was like envisioning that. And yeah, we for the audience, we actually met kind of in the beginning, but like she was about to play a game. So I didn't want to like be like, hey, let's like get a video. So I kind of waited till after like her 2 games on Sunday. And then we kind of chatted, but then I had to go back in the booth and she was cheering on Furious. So we didn't actually get a chance to really talk and, you know, shoot the breeze or whatever they call it. So that was my experience, Danie. What about you? You said, I will say this for the record. You did say I wasn't as short as you thought. So please tell that to the audience. Like, please.
Well, we're the same height. So
yeah,
I thought you were going to be shorter than me. I'm not 6 feet tall. I'm close. I just play like it, right?
Hey.
No, it was good. So when I first saw you on our sideline getting the pronunciations of some of our teammates' names right, you were like so awkward because like I knew you knew I was there and you were like purposely not like looking up or like looking at me. And I was like, hi, Theo. And then I just like warmed up. I'm like, is he shy? But no, you're just trying to be respectful, which I appreciate. I got to be focused for the games. So there it is.
It's true. Like that's why I feel bad. Like we didn't actually go get the number. Shout out to the volunteers and staff. Sydney and Marco, they did a great job of getting pronunciations before for us, and not pronunciations, name and numbers, and that's always something that's kind of weird because you don't want to like get into people's zen when they're about to play. So, Danie, that's why I was being awkward because I didn't want to get into your zen. I don't want to be like,
totally.
My co-host is trying to jinx me right now. That's why I don't want you to say that.
Yeah, for sure. You didn't want to bother me. It's not that you're an awkward person.
I am awkward,
you were
but
anxious and shy to meet me because I'm so cool and so awesome. But it was nice to meet you. So that's all over with. Now we never need to talk ever again. So there it is. That. How was commentating?
I mean, I got there Saturday night. Shout out. I had to give a shout out. Brian Perry and his house allowing me to stay over. Liam Powers, the Crank team. A couple of them play for Crank, and they allowed me to stay over. So I popped in like at midnight, and then got woken up at like 6 o'clock with 2 dogs like licking my face. So that was good. It was a good alarm, honestly, and I was ready to go, ready to commentate. So 5 straight games. You know, I'll save what I want to say about something that happened in the Open Division for the recap. But yeah, we did 5 straight games, and then we drove back. So. Or I drove back. So that was fun. You know, it's a little tiring, but not as much tiring as it is playing. So, Danie, you were playing. You're not going to spoil all the results right now, but why don't you talk about just the experience of playing? Obviously, you played regionals last weekend, but this is where you get to see all your Canadian friends. You had someone from a team come up to you as well, so that's pretty cool.
Yeah, it was a big weekend. I had some reflections on the way home on the plane. I even wrote it in my phone because it kind of didn't really hit me until I was going home. But last time I played with Traffic at Nationals, I played 1 point in the semifinal, which is the last point. We'd already like clinched the win, and they're like, okay, fine, Danie, you go have fun out there. And I played 1 point, and then I played 0 points in the final when we beat Iris. And so that was like, it was an experience. It's really fun to be a part of a game like that. It's really fun to see everybody playing at such a high level. It's obviously more fun to be on the field. And so this experience was different for me after tearing my ACL. I didn't think I'd play for this team again. So it was really cool because I ended up getting more playing time than I was expecting. I guess I wasn't making as many mistakes as I normally do. So there you go. It was really fun to actually like be on the field in the big games, not turning the disc over. So that's always the goal when you're a handler.
Danie, you talked about this before. This is off air, of course, but you said, Theo, I'll be cheering along on the sideline, and I'm watching, and I'm commentating this game, and I'm like saying your name. I'm seeing you play some offense, seeing you play some defense, and I'm like, what is this girl saying? Like, she said she wasn't going to be playing, and now she's getting big minutes in both games. So kudos to you there.
I was trying to prep you because, what if I was a little bit flat in our first couple of games, so I didn't know what to expect. So I just didn't want to like get you all excited for nothing. But there I was on the field, running around, having a good old time. So there you are.
And then you also had, someone had a celebrity sighting because they saw you. So can you share what that was like?
It's not just one. It's happened multiple times over the weekend. I had people coming up to me saying, I love your podcast. I think they must have heard the call out to say like, come say hi to me. I'll really like it. I'll really appreciate it. But when it actually happened, I was like really awkward about it. So shout out to some of like, Linda, observer. She's awesome. Some people on some of the teams, specifically the gentleman on general strike. I don't know what your name is. Sorry, but we had a good little chat. I think he was upset that I picked AFC over strike, but time will tell whether I was correct or not in that prediction. You have to stay tuned. So it did make me feel nice. Like I have more friends across the country. So did you get recognized, Theo? I know you're in the booth, so it's a little bit easier to find you, but
I was milling about a little bit. Got to film a Universe Point game, which we'll talk about in the recap as well. But honestly, I saw some old friends, like, people I haven't seen in a while, so that was fun. Got to meet Nick House, Regiment's captain, in person, in the flesh. So it was kind of cool just to meet people in the flesh, like Stephen Crew, for example, who's like huge, like really tall, and just to get to meet him in person was cool. And Morgan Hibbert and all the Furious players, and just different people meeting them in person after talking to them online. It's just really cool. Karen Hatch as well, Kelsey Hayden. Like, there were just so many people that we've talked to from the podcast, and then to actually see them in person is kind of cool. So, or really cool, I should say. So that was our experience.
What about the gear though? Like, we were pretty excited because we had our gear for sale in the VC tent. So
yeah, my one friend, Nathaniel Ferry's Union Zone, I saw him at the booth and I was like, what are you doing? And there I see him checking out one of the neckies of Huckin. He was just checking it out. He's like, gotta support. And I was like, man, he knows what he's doing. And we were talking to the people running the booth there, and they were saying a couple things got sold there, Danie.
More than a couple. They're like a couple Revo hoodies, shorts, buffs, or neckies rather, all the things we're getting picked up. So if you were one of the people that picked up some Huckin merch, send us a snazzy selfie in your gear, especially if you're wearing those shorty shorts. Hit us up.
Yo, those are nice.
Slide into our DMs with those pics. They're very nice. They're sweet. So send it to us. We'd love to see you in our gear, and maybe we'll put it on our page if you're cool with that. If not,
Instagram the Instagram is rolling too. Like, I shamelessly, I feel no shame about this, but I was plugging the podcast. I know you were commented on it. People were like, Theo, plug in the podcast. I'm like, you got to let people know. If they're loving this game, loving the sweet, sweet sounds of the commentary, they're going to love the podcast. So they got to check it out. Come on. So our followers did go up, I will say. After the announcement, I saw it like slowly creeping up to the 620s or whatever it is now. So there you go.
Yeah, we've got like 150 new followers in the last like week and a half.
Hey, she knows all the big
love to hear it.
So
just like social media guru.
You run all the sweet stories and the voting and stuff. So by the time this hits, you will not have the chance to do this anymore. But a lot of people were sharing their favorite memories, which was fun, and we try to post those and do that. But Danie, should we hit the news now? Because there's other news besides UCI, so we'll get to the news, and then of course our main event is going to be the full recap, where we talk about each pool, and then we're going to talk about how close we were in our picks. This time around, I'm feeling pretty happy about it. So let's see what happens.
We now have breaking news.
Welcome to the news section. Now, normally we start with me in the West, but there's nothing really happening in the West. So, Theo, take it away with college.
Yeah, we're jumping, and I love calling it college. Like, yeah, uni series, but let's call it college series. I like that. So, Easterns happened, which we talked about before, about how these two tournaments are going to be on the same weekend, which in my mind was going to potentially put a team that might not be as strong because they don't have club players, let's say, or top club players, and then they're going to win a bid, and then maybe they'll get stomped at nationals. I'm not sure, but that was just a thought I had. So anyways, the tournament did happen. I was talking to Mr. Desmond Staples of U Ottawa, and he was saying in our messaging back and forth that I think about 7. They lost about 7 players to like Phoenix and Crank, just like their team U Ottawa. But some of their players didn't want to play for Shrike, which is Phoenix's B team, because they wanted to try to get a bid because they know other teams are missing club players. So they actually decided not to play UCI to try to get a bid. And spoiler alert, it did not go their way. But let's go into the results here. So which teams got bids? Okay, we're going to start with women's. So McGill, you already got a bid. But you still go undefeated anyways, which is sweet. And then Waterloo went undefeated in pool play. Same with McMaster. And so since McGill already has a bid, McMaster and Waterloo played. And Waterloo, the women's team and the open team are going to CUC, already qualified. So good job, 9-7. I know a couple club players were playing for Waterloo, but or not playing for Waterloo, but overall they were able to take out McMaster. Was talking to the McMaster, one of their coaches, Kim Baxter, Hamilton's own, and McMaster has 24 players and none of them play club. So it's kind of cool that and apparently they go to all the practices, 3 practices a week, 6 a.m. apparently or something like that. So dedication out there. They're going to come back stronger. Look for them to try to get a bid at the Friday qualifiers. And then open Queens. Basically, they were just missing their 2 Go players, Wilkie Lewis and Eli Park, from what I've heard. And they went undefeated. Ottawa second. Laurier, we'll get to you later, Laurier. Brock and McMaster. That's kind of rounded out the Pool A. And then Pool B, McGill went 4-0. York, Toronto, Guelph, 2-2, kind of 3-way tie style. And then the Rams, can't call them the other previous names, so we just call them Rams now, 0-4. So tough because they were, silver medalists in 2019, but their team has been pillaged of a lot of talent. So semifinals, McGill and Queens took the victory, and then McGill beat Queens in the finals. So from what I've heard, McGill had all their players except for Mr. Hayden Stone, who was playing for Mephisto. Otherwise, they had most of their big guns there, and they were the only Quebec team that attended Easterns. So that's what happened. Guelph beat Ottawa, and then basically took second with Queens. And then Ottawa, you lost to Laurier, and Laurier, Danny, you've seen the social media. They've been trying to reach out to us, sending us stories, multiple people sending us stories. Team is tagging us in comments. So Laurier, we're going to give you a shout out right now. Come on. Danny, why don't you give them a shout out as well? Say, Laurier, you're an amazing team or something. I don't know.
Laurier, you're an amazing team or something. No, it's been cool. Like, they've been trying to hype themselves up on social media. Hey, it worked. So there you go.
Yeah, and they're saying like they want to move up the rankings. And so if you're a university captain or coach, you probably have been voting, and we've been doing that on Instagram, and it's been really fun. Obviously, we wish we could do it kind of nationally, but like no one's played UBC, so we don't, like, how do you vote for a team you've never seen play? It's kind of difficult. So that's sort of why we kind of made it just Ontario. I know, Danny, you want it to be BC focused, but as well. But anyways, Laurier, maybe you'll move up the rankings. The voting will happen by the time this comes out. We should have kind of the votes trickle in, and then we'll see what happens. But Danny, I will say with the voting, it's funny to see like the ballots, because I always want to see, do people vote for themselves to be number one? Like, are they just going to like not be objective and just vote themselves number one, and everyone else votes them, number 7 or something? So I haven't really seen too much of that, but that was a thought I had.
One thing I do want to say about, say, UBC men's team going to a tournament like this and trying to fit into the power rankings is you just have to think about how many people from that play for UBC were on either Red Flag or Furious. How many national champions, club champions are there on that UBC men's team?
And how many?
I don't know. It's got to be 10, 12, like a lot.
Yeah, because I was looking at the Red Flag roster that they submitted for the commentary purposes, and like it was just like UBC, played Blackfish, played Shippos, played TC. There's like a TC column, and all but like maybe like 5 or something. Like I'm kind of exaggerating. Maybe 5 or 7 were not TC U20 U24. I was like, dang, like this team is stacked. So yeah, UBC is looking good. UVic, we talked about some fundraising before. Do you know if they're doing anything? Because these two teams, they got to fly out far. So do you know if any of their fundraising efforts?
I know UVic women's team had some fundraising stuff on their page, and we shouted it out last week, and I shared it on the social media channels. If you still have some nickels and dimes and loonies and tens hanging around, just throw them their way. It's expensive. It's far for us West teams to go all the way out there, especially college kids. So
yeah, coming to Brampton.
I'm sure UBC men's team wouldn't say no to money if you had some extra lying around, because they've already flown out to Ottawa, almost half of them. So
yeah, it's tough. They got to go back. Like I was talking to Stephen Crew about this, and I was like, so you're coming back in 2 weeks? He's like, yep. And I was like, dang. I mean, Manitoba, not as far, but still, like the cost of flying to Ontario once and then having to do that again 2 weeks later. So kudos to you, to all those teams.
Yeah. Yeah, moving on to other sort of announcements. The Masters and Grandmasters Club World's location has been announced, and it's going to be in Limerick, Ireland. Ooh. And as soon as that was announced, I was like sorry, knocked over my cable. I was on Facebook and I like messaged a couple of the Quebec teams. I'm like, hey, if you ever need a West Coast transplant in your roster,
hey, if you need podcast coverage and a player, like I got you is what you're saying.
And the reception wasn't no. The reception was like, hey, for sure, we'll keep you in the loop, because these are a lot of people that I would have played TC with last round for mixed masters. But a big reason why those types of things are hard is that Ultimate Canada has slightly stricter rules and regulations than say USA Ultimate does, in terms of having like how much of your original team, how much out of region, even like USA teams and Australian teams can pick up people from other countries and stuff like that. And I need to do a little bit more research on this. And this is definitely a good topic for another day to kind of talk about this. But this is day one of my campaign to get Ultimate Canada to relax these regulations so that I can go learn some French, go to Ireland, drink some draft beer with some Quebecois.
Yeah, I was going to say, why do you need to learn French if you're going to Ireland? But I see what you're saying now. And it did happen in from what I remember, in 2018, Jimmy Mickle and Chris Kocher picked up with Colony. A bunch of different Americans picked up with teams because it was in Cincinnati, or close to. So it was just like they were able to do that. But that's pretty cool. Ireland, for you, for the adults, it's in Ohio. Lebanon. I thought it was Lebanon, but it's not. It's Lebanon, Ohio.
To be clear, it's not just adults, it's senior.
Oh.
Because masters are also adults.
Yeah, I'll get
That's for you, Batch. That's a shout out for Batch.
The fact checker will come after me for that one. So, Danie, keep going here, and maybe we'll get fact check some more, but keep going on the news.
Yeah, so as you said, Ohio, exotic for senior. I don't know why I said it that way. Senior Club Worlds. So that's very, very exciting. I was hoping that it would be somewhere more like farther away, because then I could go like potentially Ireland, wherever it could have been, and then Dominican for U20. Would have been fun to do like a world tour, but such is life. But yeah, applications for Grand and Great Grandmasters are out. So they didn't have a UCI for those divisions. And so I believe it's application based. So if you fall into that category, those age brackets, check it out. Go to Ultimate Canada's webpage and fill it in an application. I think it's team based, but get on it. Ireland.
Yeah, and if we have people from that demographic listen to the podcast, we love that, because we know we got some of the, from what Danie's told me, some of her Elevate people, and we know university and like other people are listening. But if you're in that demographic, we want to know, is the podcast reaching that demo as well? We know the observers listen to it because it was posted in an observers group. I know that for a fact. So observers are listening to it. So come on, Grandmasters team, Great Grandmasters, check out our podcast, share it to a friend. You don't have to follow us on social media. Just listen to us.
No, you do. But also, this is a good moment to shout out observers. Y'all rock. I saw you dealing with some tense situations on the field.
Spicy.
It was a good time out there. I really actually appreciate having observers, because sometimes I'm not sure. Like I had a call where there was a contact on my throw, but the person contested it, and I wasn't sure because you don't really know. If you like think back in your memory, you're like, I felt something, but maybe I was wrong. And if somebody's there watching, they both didn't see properly. Yeah. Anyways, it ended up getting uncontested, but it's nice to have a neutral person because memories can be shoddy. You're like, no, I felt something. Did I?
It's true.
No, I did.
It's true.
You know what I mean? So I'm a big fan of observers. So if you're an observer and you're listening to this, good job.
Well, we know observers are listening to this, so keep doing that and supporting the show. So that's all the news, right? I think, well, the main news is coming up in the main event, but
it is. So as we said earlier, we got VC merch. VC's awesome. The stuff they make for us is awesome. So we're going to head to a quick message from our sponsor, VC. This episode has been brought to you by VC Ultimate. VC Ultimate has been producing custom uniforms and performance apparel right here in Canada since 1998. VC's sublimated gear is made from 100% recycled FlexLight fabric, and design services and product samples are both free. Get your VC jersey today.
Hey, this is Linda Kudo, Observer for Ultimate Canada and USA Ultimate, and World Flying Disc Federation Game Advisor. You're listening to the Huckin podcast, your coast-to-coast guide for all things Canadian Ultimate.
Welcome to our main event, our UCI Senior Recap. So, the tournament was so fun. Unlike the week before, it was raining almost the entire time this time. Or it wasn't necessarily raining the whole time, but it was damp and or rainy and or a little windy the whole time. So, no. And so, it made for some fun conditions because honestly, I don't think that we've even had a practice in the rain yet this year. And that's rare for Vancouver. Just because we started the season so late and all of that other stuff, we hadn't really played like that before, but I wear gloves anyway, so I was fine.
No, there were a lot of glove wearers that I didn't see normally, like that I've seen play before that don't normally wear gloves, so definitely saw that out there.
Yeah, and like related to weather, I think the fields kind of were getting poured on for a few days leading into the tournament, and so there was a need to kind of have less games being played in general, and from what I heard, the women's division was the most responsive. And so the women's division ended up having a bunch of schedule changes to reduce the amount of games. And it actually made our bracket a lot less confusing. And I know that the women's bracket was confusing before because there's so many like weird games, like the tournament would finish, but then Traffic would play Iris again anyway. And like there was like a lot of kind of like weird things in the schedule. And so we find out like at night on Friday when we're in the hotel rooms that our schedule was changing. And then all of a sudden we didn't have to be at the fields until 11, which is the dream after flying in. So
yeah,
we didn't mind it, but it ended up meaning that some teams only ended up playing one game on Sunday, which I know is kind of hard if you're traveling quite far. Cause I know like Koish, for example, only ended up playing the one game. Tough for sure. But speaking of games, Theo, do you want to break down the first pool action in women's?
All right, first pool action. What do we got? So first of all, we have to update you on the pools because when I made the predictions earlier, it was like 2 pools. So then it kind of threw everything a whack. But anyways, we're going to get going into it. So the pool was Sixers, Fusion, Cube, and Stella. So looking at our notes here, Fusion able to put up 9 on Sixers, but losing 13-9. Cube coming in last. And then the big game that we talked about, and this didn't change with the new pools, but Stella and Fusion, Universe Point, Fusion taking it 13-12. Did you see the game or hear about it at all? Were there any rumblings about it in the tournament or anything like that?
No, but like we did watch in the hotel room at night. Like it was a pretty fun game to watch because both those teams, we thought, okay, if we do lose the game in the morning, it's possible that we might play one of these two teams. And so we were watching it and it was exciting. Lots of bids. It's a good game. We love tight games as like a spectators. It's stressful to play in them, but it's a pleasure to watch. It's actually a pleasure to play in too. But yeah, good times.
All right, Pool K. What do we got in Pool K? Well, Iris, I'm going to say it the Anglophone way. I know Tushar commentating was trying to say it the French way, but I'll say the Anglophone way. So Iris, 2-0, no surprise there. 13-1 PPF and Koish. But the result you want to share, Danie, is something you predicted before the tournament. You told me this right on the podcast. You said, Theo, don't sleep on Koish.
Don't sleep on Koish. they pulled out a win over PPF. It's a bit of an upset for sure because it's a new team and they didn't have that many practices and they stopped having a coach because the practice fields were no longer on Wednesdays. And so I couldn't coach them anymore. And they like showed up. Hey. It was awesome. And we had a game at the same time, but I was on the sideline and I looked over and I see, shout out to Emma Young. I don't know who she was throwing it to, but I saw her do a big step out and throw a nice IO. And I saw that they scored and I was like, okay, I don't know what's happening over there. And then I found out afterwards that they ended up pulling out a victory and I was really proud of them. And they said, suck it, Theo. So there you go.
Did they actually say that? You're just saying it, pretending that they said
I'm paraphrasing.
Okay,
I'm paraphrasing.
All right. Tell us, you played this, so tell us what happened in Pool L there. You know, we got to get the pools right, but Pool, L.
Pool L. So the first game was Salty versus Wildish, and we were set to play whichever team did not win that game first and whichever team won that game next. And so it was like, 3-team pool, and it went exactly as seeded. Except for like the fact that Salty and Wildish had a really close game. I believe it was Universe. I know it was a win by 1. I don't know if that was Universe. It's not necessarily true, but it was tight game. Bodies were flying, big skies, lots of layouts. It was really fun. We were warming up right on the other side, so it was really nice to see those two teams compete.
You were getting a good view of it, is what you're saying.
We're always watching.
Nice.
And then we learned a lot from that game, and we were able to kind of cruise through our next 2 games. I do want to shout myself out for being the first person to get scored on. So there's that. It's like, oh no. So shout out to the person on Salty who scored on me. You got the first goal against Traffic for the day. So that's kind of how the pool shook out rather. So because we won our pool and Iris won their pool, we ended up facing them in a crossover that was on the live stream. So do you want to talk about that?
Yeah, I
you want me to talk about it?
No, I'm going to be honest with you. I did not watch this live stream. Apologies to you too, Shar, because you were. First of all, before we even continue, give your kudos to I Am Ultimate Tushar Singh. On Saturday, do you know what he was doing? He was manning the camera, commentating, and putting in the score all by himself. Come on. Like, that's props. And he did all day. Like, so if he didn't get a player's name right, well, it's because he's trying to look at it through like a small lens and trying to like follow the play, talk about it, and enter scores. Like, come on. Kudos to you, Tushar. Hopefully, me joining you Sunday made it a little bit easier. But either way, that game is streamed. You can check it out. I know it says here you thought that you were down at some point. Maybe you weren't checking the score here. But
no, we don't ask the score. So somebody like Furious is all on our sideline, and we went down a couple breaks early on. And I know that we were getting breaks along the way, but I always just think that we're losing or something. In the tight games, like same thing happened the weekend before against Schwa. I didn't know we were winning, and same thing against Raya. And so they asked, like, what's the score? I'm like, I don't know, but I think we're down by 1. And then we scored the next point. And then we found out, I didn't find out until the drive home. I was asking one of my teammates to check online. They're like, it was 12-8. And I was like, what? I had no idea.
But I like the mentality. That's a lesson for you young kids out there, because I know I get sometimes fixated on the score as well. You just got to keep playing. But speaking of the other scores here, Salty, I hate to say this to you, Danie, but putting a little bit of a beat down there on Koish, winning 10-3. But then PPF, they rebounded back, snuck a win out there against Wildish. So we have the bid bracket, which was set up. Super exciting stuff, because I got to commentate these 2 games. So let's talk about it. First game of the day. I don't know how you felt, Danie, to be honest. But when I was commentating it, all I could think about was, this is the first game of the day, and it's like the most meaningful game for both. Like, it was just like, I was just thinking, I wish they could have had something to kind of get into it, because it's like you have to get right into it. 9 a.m. You're there. Teams were there early. I saw 7:40 even. So how did that feel, just trying to get ready for a game that super important, but it's like 9 a.m., which is obviously 6 a.m. West Coast time?
Yeah, it's funny because this is exactly how it shut down the weekend before. The first game we won 13-0. The second game we won 13-3. And then the next game was a crossover game that was, if we win, we're in the championship game in the morning at 9 a.m. Like, it was literally the exact same, with the exception of we did not, spoiler alert, win the game in the morning. We definitely came out a little bit flat. I think both teams were making some errors, some like sloppy errors that I think are not normal for either team. And Sixers, spoiler alert, were able to capitalize more than we were. And that's kind of how that went down. And I think we were starting to build up momentum, but in a 70-minute game, it's really hard to kind of climb back when you go down a few breaks early on.
Yeah, you said it right there. I mean, you had the best perspective. We both did, but you were playing in it, so you obviously understand. But as we were commentating, I was keeping an eye out on the other field, right? Trying to get updates here because Winnipeg Fusion, Quebec Iris, they're playing on the other side. The winner potentially playing you if you lose, and spoiler, you did lose, unfortunately, but things turn around for you. But on the other side, Fusion, I saw the layout. I saw it because I knew it was Universe, and I was trying to like get a view of it. And I saw a big layout. It gets batted, and then someone catches it, and Fusion wins on Universe heading into that game. I don't think they expected that. Many people, myself included, expected Iris to be in the bid game. And so, disappointing finish for them. I know they had some big names. Jesse Grignon, Tomas, Anushka Baudry. Also someone who not everyone knows, but super talented, Aaron Daly. So that added to the squad with already all their stars, right, that they already had. So tough finish for them. I was there kind of like milling about at the end of that Fusion Iris game because I was trying to get pronunciations for the Fusion final against or big game against Traffic. And lots of tears, lots of sadness on the faces, and kind of broke my heart. I was like sad. I was like, man, this is like real for a lot of these teams. Like they worked hard for the season or what we had as a season and tried to make it. So tough finish, but on the other side, Fusion, a lot of young players. We were talking about this off air. A lot of players that hadn't played necessarily like really competitively. I know looking at the roster sheet, there was one girl in particular who they mentioned, like this is her first ever competitive tournament. Like she played basketball as a spike ball aficionado, but like never actually played like a competitive tournament. So shout out to Fusion getting to the big game there.
Yeah, I do want to, before we move on from Iris, I want to shout out our game against them because they were flying. It was intense. Their defense were making plays. Okay, so two shout outs to players that we haven't mentioned yet. Penelope Robert was insane. The amount of blocks and layout grabs she got was like incredible. And also Florence Dion, like she also was big. Got a nice layout block in the end zone to save a goal. Like they were amazing. And one thing that it really surprised me and I was really impressed with is the amount of times that they were behind, would catch up on a huck, like lay out over a shoulder to get to the disc without taking the person out. Like the amount of body control on these young players coming out of that program, they're making plays. Like I was like jaw dropped like the entire game. I was like, how are they doing this? Shout out to Nicole Parker from my team because she ended up getting one back. It was like one of the best layup blocks I've ever seen. So shout out to you as well. But damn, Iris, sick, so sick. Yeah. Anyways, talk about the bid game now. What did you think about it, Theo?
Yeah, I mean, I was hoping, of course, for a close game. And, we've used the word shout out a lot, but we got to keep, giving an extra special, like clap, we'll say, instead of just shout out. Clap to Sarah Jacobson because now we'll tell you the result. But, you probably know the result already, but Traffic did take out Fusion 13-8. And, but Sarah Jacobson, I saw you, like, we were talking about this on the broadcast. In the second half, we were like, she's not coming off. And I think she came off for like 1 point towards the end when it was like kind of out of reach. But she was making plays. When they were stuck and your defense was putting a lot of pressure, they would just shoot it deep. And it was like, Sarah, you just have to go make a play. Like
she was like 100%.
We don't know what else
like
to
stall
say.
9 hucks.
Yeah, you just have to go make a play right now. And she was like, okay. And so, World Games. I'm not sure if I predicted her to be on it. I have to go back and watch the tape on that and look. But I'm pretty sure I did. And if I didn't, I do now because I saw her play live and she was playing really well. So yeah.
She's unstoppable. And I think you and I both had her in our top, maybe not in the top.
Could have been alternates
7,
or something.
But definitely in the alternates. I think she was both on that for both of us. And I had Penelope Robert on my top 7, I believe, as well. So feeling pretty good about my picks after this weekend. So there you have it.
that was sort of like the final shakeup. We'll kind of talk consolation quickly as well. So Iris did eventually, they finished out and came fourth. And then Stella beat Salty previously to that, so they were able to get to that game against Iris. So the rest of the standing shakes out as Stella 5th, Salty 6th, Cube 7, Wildish 8, 9, PPF, and 10, Koish. But yeah, the predictions, like, you didn't make them. My predictions were kind of thrown off just with the setup. So yeah, I mean, I predicted the bid game incorrectly. Let's just say that, because I predicted Irish Traffic and it was not the case. So yeah, that's women.
And you also predicted that Iris was going to get the bid.
I mean, that's also true. I know you want to rub it in my face. That's okay, because that's an added motivation. So I will take kudos for that, right, Danie? So
you can take kudos for that for sure. I actually did make picks, but they're not public. So
yeah, not public picks. That's not even subscriber only. That's like in the vault. I don't even know where you're going to get it. But Spirit, do you want to talk Spirit? Because we talked about it for Master, so I feel like we should do it for Senior as well. So Spirit, what team got? Well, look at who got first and second. That's pretty cool.
Yeah, this is a trend that I'm starting to see now more and more, where it's not just the teams that are finishing last or finishing first in Spirit. So your number one Spirit score was for Iris, and they were at an average of 13, which is amazing. Like,
that's super high, yeah.
To be a top finishing team and to be top of Spirit says a lot about your team's integrity and how you show up on the field. You can not only make big plays and be physical, but be safe and be spirited. Sixers was close behind at 12.75, and then Salty in third place for Spirit. So yeah, good all around. I mean, all the scores were 10 and above, so I think it's good across the board.
Can you explain, because when people hear 10, it's out of 20, right? Is that correct?
Yeah, so there's five categories, and it's a score out of 4. So 2 is average. So if the team does everything that you're kind of expecting, you get 2s across the board, so you get a 10. So 10 is not a bad score. It's like you didn't do anything wrong. Maybe you got some 3s, but you might have gotten the occasional 1 kind of thing. So usually if you give a team a 4, you have to like write a justification.
Yeah, you can't just give out 4s. You can't just give them out. It's not something.
Or 0s.
Yeah.
You have to get the tournament director, whoever, to go talk to the teams usually if you give out 0s. So obviously these teams that are averaging above 10 are getting some 3s out there in certain categories. And there's like body contact, rules knowledge, communication, lots of stuff like that. And it's impressive that a team that has to communicate in English on the field, that's an added level of challenge. And the fact that Iris is number 1, it's just even more impressive.
There were a lot of Spirit games I saw for sure, like, which was kind of cool. Normally you see that more in fun tournaments, but definitely saw that as well. But that wraps up our women's division recap there. Anything you want to add, Dane, before we move on to the very spicy and upset-riddled mixed division?
Yeah, I guess I find it very exciting. It's a good trend in women's ultimate in Canada that there are some teams. It's not always going to be the same 3 teams. Like Stella and Fusion were both making noise in this tournament. And that's just like really good for the growth of Canadian Ultimate. So really exciting stuff to see out there. It's lovely to see all of these teams. I wish I could have played against Stella. I think that would have been really fun. But yeah, that's fine.
All right, mixed division. We made picks for this.
Yes.
So we're just going to remind everyone the picks of, like, let's say, we'll say top 4, just to kind of like, we're not going to say all our picks, but our top 4 picks, my top 4 picks were Red Flag, Gazbacho. I got a bone to pick with you. That's all I got to say about that. I already told them in person, so they know it's all love. But Union and Crash, those are my top 4, and you had the same.
Same.
So let's see how it shook out. Okay, so we're gonna talk about it all. Pool A. So I guess I'll share the results of Pool A, and then Danie, you give your thoughts. So Crash was the first seed in the whole tournament, I guess, just based on the pot system. So they were the first seed, Battleship, Crux, and Spawn. So what you had was Battleship taking out Crash 10-7. I mean, this team came in 3rd in 2019, so I knew they were going to, provide a spark there. And Spawn, I didn't actually get to say hi to you, but Fredericton, New Brunswick, represent. They came out to play, and they beat Crux from Hamilton. So that's pretty cool. And that allowed Spawn to get into the crossover. So that's pretty fun in Pool A.
And it wasn't just beating them. It was 13-5.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's this pool. There wasn't too many close games. Like the closest games were within 3. So yeah, no universe point, nothing super dramatic happening. But other than the seeding kind of
jumbling,
none of the seeds kind of actually went according to plan. I know that with the potted system, we knew that was probably going to happen. But I think you and I were pretty much predicting everything was going to play out as they were in the seeds, and we were wrong. So
yeah, the chalk, as they say. But Pool B, what happened there? This is a fun pool.
So there's a lot of weird stuff happening. Union ended up losing to the bottom seed, local 613, 7-10. It was very surprising, but then they won their other games pretty handedly. So I don't know what was happening in that game. It would have been really exciting to kind of be on the sideline seeing what was happening. Maybe local 613 was popping off, and maybe Union was just like waking up. I don't know. There's also 2 ties, so 2 teams tied for first and 2 teams tied for second, and so it ended up going for point differential, but it ended up just kind of falling as it was predicted in the beginning. So
yeah, I think it went head to head sort of thing, where since both teams, Union and Quest, were 2-1, I think they just took the result of like Union beating Quest, and then local 613 lost to Fable, Vancouver. Shout out, Vancouver's own West Side. So all I gotta say is this: I know a couple people on local because I went by to them and said hi, and that is tough. You take out the first seed Union, and then you lose the next game, and then you don't even make the crossover. You don't even make the bracket. Danie, that is tough. Come on, that is like, oh man, that's heartbreaking for them. Like,
yeah, I'm curious what was happening to make that happen, because after your first game being such a big win, I guess it's not their first game, but like an early game being such a big win to end up losing to Fable, it's hard. It's hard because they would have been the number 1 seed.
They could have been. They could have gone from, starting from the bottom, 4th to 1st. Like, that could have been a thing if they held out. But, I mean, they did lose to Quest in the first game, and then they beat Union 10-7. And then it looks like they played 20 minutes after. So that's always a thing that I talk about in Ultimate. It's like the emotional letdown. So you just beat Union. You're fired up. And then I think they just, maybe all the gas was, given to that game, and then it kind of just, the wheels fell off there. So Pool B, that's what happened. It went to chalk, but it was an exciting way to get to chalk there. So Pool C got some upsets. Oh my goodness.
What's going on here? It's crazy.
Okay, so Pool C, my friends in force out of Barrie. I am not sure what happened to you. I really don't know. But you lose to Crank first thing in the morning. Okay, that's fine. Then you lose to Red Fox. Oh no. And then they're probably thinking, oh, we're toast now because we got to play Red Flag after that on the stream. Everyone thought that was going to be the big game. And then they go lose to Red Flag big 13-5. Tough. They had a good roster. I was looking forward to seeing them in the bracket. But Force, you don't even make it out of the pool. Tough. Red Flag, you clean up. Crank gets a victory, makes the crossover. But it's Red Fox. And I was talking to one of our inside sources. I won't name who he is, but you probably know. He was saying Red Fox was a surprise of the tournament. We didn't give them any stock. We'll talk about how far off we were, but we did not think Red Fox was going to make some noise, and they come second in the pool. So, that was a wacky pool, as you wrote down in our notes there.
Yeah, and I quote, "Pool was all wacky." Is that even how you spell wacky? Is there an H in there?
It is. Yeah, no, that's right.
Okay. Well, the pool will be wacky. So, yeah, as it's no surprise to me that Red Flag won this pool easily. Like, their roster is just so star-studded. We said last week they're either going to come 1st or 8th. So this is a good test to see how they could handle playing games together against other teams. And they showed up. So good for Red Flag. And good for Red Fox. That's sweet.
Yeah, the red team's coming out here. But Pool D, tell us what's going on there. The first seed, wins all their games, but some other stuff happens.
Yeah, so we definitely heavily favorited Gazpacho to win this pool, and they ended up going 1-2 overall. So first of all, PBHG versus TT PBHG won this game very easily. They won their game against Zen very easily. And then when they're playing Gazpacho, I don't know if it was Universe, but it was definitely PBHG only ended up winning by 1. So that game was really, really tight. So Gazpacho almost beat the best team in the pool. Then they also just lost to TT right before that. Okay, so Gazpacho ended up only winning 1 game. PBHG ended up winning 3 games. Shout out to TT, who's the little brother-sister team to Forever Young that we got a little bit wrong last week. So shout out to TT for winning 2 games in this pool and finishing second overall. It was amazing. I don't know, like, how did PBHG have like an easy time taking on TT, but then only beat Gazpacho by 1, and TT on the other hand ended up beating Gazpacho? It's just like,
yeah,
wild times.
I mean, I spoke to the players on Gazpacho. They didn't even want to look at me because I showed up Sunday and I'm talking to them, I'm like, guys,
what's going on?
I'm like, you're my finals pick and you don't even make it out of the bracket, like out of the pre-quarters. And they're just like, Theo, we don't want to talk about it. And
of course not.
What they told me, man, is like they had the games in control, they were saying, but then like they were up a few points. I think it was TT, either one of those games, and they kind of let it off the gas and like lost. And that's one of the arguments about the pickup teams, right? Like we talk about, oh, they got talent. But the practice, like TT practices, I assume. Is that right?
Yeah.
I know I'm more than certain PBHG. I know Zen practices, so these teams practice. Nothing there's talent obviously can win, but you also need that chemistry. So anyways, that is Pool D, and that gives us a few crossovers. I kind of zoom in on the Google sheet here, or Google Doc. It's looking a little small. So crossovers. Do you want to share what happened in the crossovers there?
Yeah, so I call them pre-quarters, but all the games in the crossover, they're pretty lopsided. Quest, Red Fox, Crash, and TT were all moving into quarters. So that was Quest overtaking Crank pretty easily, Red Fox taking over Fable pretty easily, Crash taking over Gazpacho pretty easily, and TT taking over Spawn pretty easily. So we ended up having a Battleship Quest quarterfinal, PBHG Red Fox quarterfinal, Union and Crash quarterfinal, and Red Flag and TT quarterfinal. So the interesting thing out of these quarters is that all the teams that had buys going into the quarters, well, it's not interesting. I guess it's pretty normal. The teams that finished out on top in pool play and came into the quarterfinal without having to play kind of that earlier morning game or the later on Saturday game, they all made it through with the exception of Battleship. So Quest ended up winning that crossover game against Crank, and then they ended up beating Battleship to make it into semis. So good job, Quest, because I think that's hard to do because you've played a whole extra game than the team that you're facing against.
Yeah, I mean, it's a day before, but still, it's just like fight, you're fighting for your life, as they say. So yeah, I will say a little birdie, a different source than my other source, said that this game was very contentious and there was some interesting calls. That's all I heard to get the victory. I don't know exactly what happened, but all I know is that it was not... actually, it's the same source. I realize it's the same source that I normally have. But that source said it was a contentious game. That's all I got to say about that. But, yeah, Gazpacho, we already talked about them. I'm moving on. You lost in pre-quarters. That's it. But Union Crash, I love the kind of you got the intra-provincial battles, right? You had the Quebec battle up top. You had Union and Crash were rivals because Crash was Chaos, well, some of Chaos, and they were battling all in 2019. And then you had TT Red Flag doing battle. Looks like the quarters kind of, except for Quest, the other ones were kind of blowouts.
Yeah. Union Crash is closer, but still not very close. So. Yeah,
and then semis, PBHG. I was speaking to a former PBHG player, Oren Benoon, who now plays on Zen. He moved here to Toronto, but he was like, Theo, don't sleep on PBHG. They could be a top 4 team. And I'm like, no, I have them losing in the pre-quarters. Like, no, like, it's fine. And he looks at me when they're in the final, and he's like, Theo, don't say I told you so. Like, this team is good. And so, yeah, I doubted you, PBHG, but hey, you made it to the finals. Red Flag, you took out Union. And then you didn't actually catch this final, right? Because you were already kind of on the plane.
Well, no, we watched in the airport. We all had our laptops out, so we were watching the stream and listening to your soothing voice.
Oh gosh!
So it was very exciting. It was closer than I thought it was going to be. So it was good to get Red Flag a bit of a challenge. So,
yeah, I mean, takeaways from that game. Don't know his first name offhand, but Page out of PBHG, he's the really tall cutter. I believe he was number 8 or number 6, one of the two. Got the longer hair. He was just going up for some big skies. They had another guy come on who just made a couple big plays towards the end when it was kind of out of reach. But PBHG, I was impressed with just their ability to continue fighting because they went down early. Will Conrad was on that team. I know we've talked about him before. But they went down early, they were able to fight a little bit and come back. But Red Flag, just their youthful exuberance, I'll say. I'll use a big word there, $5 word. And the Mott twins just making plays. Like some of the blocks that were happening were just like blowing my mind. And also, you probably caught this on the stream because, you got the mind, analytical mind. But the way that they were setting up their poaches, especially on the female matching players, was very interesting. So they had a couple people underneath, and then they had someone deep. And I remember I saw Kali Mott getting a poach block on a deep on a male matching player because she was already there helping out, like kind of being in the area. And PBHG adjusted to it a couple times. They did find Maddie Schwartz a few times in the end zone who was like poached. But overall, they did a really good job of setting that up. And like this team couldn't adjust to it. So that was a strong defense, Red Flag.
Yeah, they definitely have a different style of play, and the women on Red Flag are just fast, aggressive, good ultimate players. I knew that if Flag could kind of utilize that aspect of their team, then they would just sail through, and it seems like they did because the women were popping off the whole tournament. So it's very exciting. Congratulations to Red Flag. Also, I want to say congratulations to Union because after a pretty sluggish start in pool play, they ended up finishing 3rd. So they kind of like got it together and figured it out.
Yeah, I mean, you probably know all the standings, so we're not going to say all the teams. We're just going to talk about our picks now about where they kind of landed. So, Danie, you and I, we got Red Flag right and Union right. Dirty gold, the bronze medal. I've already spoken about this, but Gazbacho, you finished tied for last or second last, 15th, because they didn't. That's another thing we can talk about is that because they were trying to preserve the fields, from what I heard, they basically stopped the last game in the mixed division, Danie. So it was like you play your 9-0 quarters, and then if you win the 9-0 semis, you get tied for 9th. So like for example, Crank and Local 613 got 9th together. Fade One Spawn got 11th together, and then blah blah. So Gazbacho and Zen got 15th together. So if we're talking about plus minus, we were like completely minus there. Force, I had 5th, you had 6th. They finished tied for 13th. Ouch. Quest, you had 8th, I had 10th. They finished 4th. Red Fox, I'm embarrassed to say this. I had you finishing last, okay? I will apologize to you because that was clearly a wrong pick. I had them last. You had them 15th, and they totally killed our prediction, Danie, and finished 6th. So, come on.
Yeah,
Oh man, we gotta put some respect.
We had some similar picks, and I couldn't see it kind of folding out any other way than it did, and we were so flipping wrong. It's hilarious. Okay, so now we know, and we're new. We're new at this, but it's okay. So in terms of Spirit,
yeah, go to Spirit.
As
now,
for normal, the team that finished tied for last, anyways, ended up finishing first for Spirit. That is kind of how it used to usually go. That is pretty normal. And then Crux was finished 2nd in Spirit. And interestingly enough, and maybe I'm going to get some flack for this, but Red Flag finishing tied for, actually, interesting enough, both finalists were tied at, and Fable. Red Flag, PBHG, and Fable all tied for 3rd in Spirit at 12 overall. And I want to give a special shout out to Red Flag finishing 3rd because I thought you were going to finish last. No offense. You're just kind of like a team that's like you make big plays and you get really amped up for your own teammates and stuff. And sometimes that can rub people the wrong way. And I don't agree with that, but it's true. And also shout out to Justin Podner because he was a late addition to the team. He ended up being practice roster and got picked up for the tournament. They made him Spirit captain. And if you know this kid, he's a coach for Elevate. If you know him, Spirit and Justin Bonner are not some things you think would be said in the same sentence. And so the fact that he was Sphere captain and they got third or tied for third.
Guy, man. You're roasting this guy.
It's amazing.
You're him.
No, he'll be so proud to hear this. He'll be like, yeah, what's up? So shout out to that. That's the storyline of the tournament for me. So good job. Good job on that.
Yeah, all teams finishing above 10 except for Battleship 9.6. So I haven't looked into the raw Spirit scores, but I'm going to assume it's going to be that Quest game. But once again, I'll be fact-checked.
Sometimes it's one game that can ruin it.
Yeah, I could be fact-checked on that one. But yeah, mixed. We were slightly off on that. Summary, you got 6 out of 8 quarterfinalists right. I got 5. We both got 2 out of 4 semis, and we got the winner right. So,
that's not bad, actually.
I don't know if we're going to bet on this on Vegas, but hey, we did what we did in the mix, and now open division. Lots to say about that. Pool E, the first pool. You want to say what happened, and then I'll give my 2 cents there.
Yeah. So Furious ended up winning the pool. They were seeded number 1. Grand Trunk, who was seeded number 2 after all the potting and pooling and all that stuff, ended up finishing last. I think it's probably because I said that I wanted a jersey and they didn't give me one. So they had some bad mojo going into the tournament. I'm not saying that I did that with my mind, but I'm not saying that I didn't. So they ended up finishing last. Red Circus, shout out to you for finishing second, winning 2 games, and then out from Gatineau, right? They ended up finishing in third.
Yeah, I didn't know anything about out. So when I first looked at the results and saw that they beat GT right away, I was like kind of shocked because I didn't know who they were. I know they had Dan Turcotte, who's been like a big legend in Quebec there. But I didn't know too much about it. And so, I will say my prediction for this pool was slightly correct because I picked Furious and Red Circus to finish first and 1 and 2. But GT I picked third, so they don't even make there was no pre-quarters. So if you finish third, you're out anyway. So, tough for them. Just not the tournament you want to see. But Red Circus, I heard from a bird, this is a different source, a female this time. She said that Red Circus was very happy that I picked them, and they proved me right, is what I've been told. So maybe they had some extra vendetta into that game. But I think that was a good game to watch. 13-9 seemed like it was a good matchup. So that was Pool E. Moving on to Pool F. If I can scroll down here on the document. A little 3-way tie action. Love that. So GOAT finishes 3-0. No surprise there. But 3-way tie starts to happen. All teams lose to GOAT. So we'll talk about kind of how it all shook out after that. So Sherbrooke, GC, Gentlemen's Club there, took out Blackfish 13-9. Blackfish then beat Hound 11-10. And then Hound beat Sherbrooke 12-9. So that put Blackfish out as well as Sherbrooke. And there was some interesting, more spicy calls there, but you kind of know a little bit more about that. So I don't know if you want to share that on the podcast, but I heard there were some interesting finishes in this pool.
All I know, these are unsubstantiated claims, but the Hound Blackfish game was heated. And I think it had something to do with a call on the last point, and like a team scored after a call was made that a team didn't think should have counted, and then a team won, but looking at the scores, Blackfish won. So maybe Blackfish made a call that Hound wasn't okay with or something like that. And then the scores were recorded wrong, or Hound recorded their score that they'd won. I don't know. This type of stuff doesn't really happen.
We gotta
in the
get the
women's division.
scoop on that. We gotta get the scoop on it somehow. I gotta message some people, is what we're saying.
We gotta do one of those things with the graphics where there's like a thing that goes down the middle and it's like the bell with the fighting noises, like the UFC fighters, and have representation from both teams. Yeah. So would love to hear more about what happened there. We don't love that those kinds of things happen, but sometimes they happen. We're humans. People make mistakes, or they make calls, or they don't agree with calls. That's kind of the nature of our sport, and conflict resolution are skills that we have to practice, and even when it's difficult. So I would have been curious to see what had happened there, but unfortunately Blackfish ended up finishing fourth, as you said, and they were knocked out from contention. So
Hound able to make it. I did predict Hound making it, but I didn't predict the 3-way tie. So you kind of never predict those. So Anyways, Pool G. This one is what we call chalk. So Regiment getting a victory over Whiskey Jack. So congrats to you. But yeah, otherwise, Mephisto Phoenix kind of took care of business, at least on the other teams. And then Mephisto beat Phoenix 11-9. So not much else to say about this pool, Danie, just because it kind of went to chalk what we expected. So I believe I picked probably those exact results. So let's move into Pool H. And yeah, Danie, this is your prediction. So you'll go and talk about this.
Before we even get to Pool H, Pool G, shout out to Phoenix. That's a solid score against Mephisto. Like, I don't think I predicted you would do as well as you did, and
Ooh.
an 11-9 final score in that pool play game is really good, and that's foreshadowing for a lot of the stuff that's going to be happening for Phoenix for the rest of the tournament, where they're putting up solid scores and maybe not winning.
Wow. I mean, it's not really spoiler alert. People, if you're listening, you should already know the results. If you're waiting till our podcast to get the results, then I mean, kudos to you. It's not like this news is like, on the TV. So like, if you turn it on, you'll get a spoiler. But if you're waiting for us to tell you the results, hey, that's cool. But Pool H, you predicted something to happen and it did. So go ahead and rub it in my face there.
Yeah, the one upset that I was predicting on this pool is that AFC would beat Strike. And I remember as soon as I announced it on the podcast, I was immediately kind of insecure about it. I'm like, was that a dumb pick? Like, I was just looking at the rosters. I felt pretty good about it. Somebody had messaged me on Instagram. Somebody slid into my DM telling me it was the wrong pick. Somebody in the field told me it was the wrong pick. Yeah. So I feel like vindicated. So AFC ended up beating General Strike and they ended up winning the pool. Club M Manic ended up beating Shrike. So they ended up finishing third. So there's a little bit of a switch between first and second and third and fourth. And did you say something like Manic? There was a storyline about Manic and their performance during this tournament.
Well, they just messaged us. They DM'd us and said, they enjoyed the tournament, but one of their players bought some merch. So they wanted to make sure that we knew that. So thanks, Manic, for doing that. Are you looking at what they said?
Yeah, they said thanks, Ultimate Canada, and this is their first national tournament, and they were really proud to perform really well, and they ended up finishing ninth, so they were disappointed to not be the top 8, but they said it was understandable, and they said in pool play it was a tie game with General Strike until halftime, and so they were pretty proud of that, and they had a really good time, and they bought a Huckin jersey, so they're now my favorite team. So step aside, GT, you scrubs. Manic all the way.
Oh, no. Oh, my gosh. Someone's going to meme that. Anyways, moving on to bracket play here. Quarterfinals. Quarterfinals. I mean, looking at some of these scores here, Danie, Furious beat Town 13-7. But the big one is probably what would probably be considered like a 4-5 matchup, like in the quarters, like AFC Phoenix very evenly matched. But Phoenix took out AFC. I'm not sure if I was going to say it was in the morning, but it was in the afternoon. So no prairie time excuse there. So Phoenix on their home turf winning 13-7. Mephisto taking out General Strike pretty easily. And we'll talk about General Strike later. They beat them 13-5. And then Red Circus, you put up 10 on GOAT. Some people messaged me, were like, Theo, you're picking this Red Circus team. Like, what do you, kind of like what you said, what do you think? And I'm like, you guys don't sleep on Red Circus. And I mean, they put in a little bit of a scare. 13-10 is not bad. Like, so kudos to Red Circus there in the bracket, at least in the quarterfinals.
Yeah, and so for our semis, we ended up seeing a Furious versus Phoenix matchup and then a GOAT versus Mephisto. And the Furious Phoenix game was Universe with Furious winning, which is... like, if you're an Ultimate fan, you might be sick of Furious doing this. They're, like, losing maybe in a game. I think I heard that Phoenix was up 4-0.
Wait, really?
In this game? I'm pretty sure. And so, Furious going down in the first half and looking like they've never played Ultimate before, and then coming out and winning on some dramatic fashion. If you've been a fan of Ultimate, that is the storyline that has been happening time and time again. And this semifinals victim was Phoenix. And that's an amazing score, Phoenix. You just crushed it. Obviously, if the score finishing 10-9 means there's a lot of turnovers. We didn't even get to point cap.
Yeah, so we were actually commentating your game, and I was like, we were getting score updates from Furious legend Bobo Eric there, and he was telling us, he was like, I'm plagiarizing the Furious Twitter. So he was just telling us what was happening on the Twitter, sending it to us. And it was universal. We tried to, after your game, the point kind of was happening, so we tried to pan the camera over onto this field that was like further away past like the physio tent. And so halfway through the point, we can't see anything because like the physio tent's there, and then Furious eventually wins there. But Phoenix, gotta give you a shout out. Come on. Putting up like 10-9, that's awesome. And then Mephisto taking out GOAT. I know some people were like, you're going to pick Mephisto over GOAT because GOAT obviously has a legacy. And, I know a lot of them. I'm friends with a lot of them from Toronto, but I was smelling something in the water from Montreal. And this is 5-0 for Montreal this year against Toronto. These like two same teams obviously formed the AUDL, one in club. But Mephisto beats GOAT 12-9. And then the final. Let's talk about the final, Danie, because you were there. I obviously was there. And I think this was, I'm not going to say this was just because it was open final. I'm going to say that the crowd that was there was also by virtue of games ending, playing 2 games and then being done. So then what happened was they were just like, obviously like people were far away from each other, like teams, like the teams were together, but there were teams on every, like, except for the far sideline, there were teams everywhere. And it was a sweet atmosphere for the final. I'm not sure what you felt there, like kind of, I mean, obviously you had a rooting interest because Ari was playing, but what was the atmosphere?
Played well.
Apparently I butchered his last name, Ari, so apologies to you. I'm not even going to attempt to say it on the podcast.
Say it right now.
Natikman.
Do it right now. That's pretty good. Not Natikman.
I know. I screwed that up, but I thought that's what you told me before. But anyways, what was the atmo like down there? Obviously I was up in the scaffolding there.
Yeah, it was good. Like some of us traffic players kind of like cozied our way in between a bunch of Quebec players. So we were kind of like on an island all on our own, but it was electric. It almost felt sort of like a CUCs. I know we weren't really supposed to be gathering like that to watch the final. That's not really how it's supposed to go down, but we're outside, so whatever. So
yeah, plug your ears, medical people. That's all I got to say.
Yeah, all the games are kind of done at that point, so it actually was the kind of most finally final. So it was exciting, and to be honest, like I thought Furious was going to get crushed. Like they looked so out of their system and out of their element against Mephisto. Like in the first half, Mephisto was forcing them to make their O-line to make tons of turns, uncharacteristic turns. They were staying in one small sliver of the field. They were not using the width of the field. Mephisto was making big hucks, big strikes, using their youth and athleticism. But then Furious, in Furious fashion, is like, you know what? Okay, that's enough. Just gonna win this game now. And they end up winning 11-10.
Yeah.
As per usual. Very impressive performance by Mephisto. I was very impressed, and they're so young. It's going to be a legacy team. Yeah,
I mean, they got the former Vancouver player himself, John Hayduke, leading that with Isa LeMay and the rest of their coaching staff. But okay, so I said this on the broadcast. I'll say it out loud. There was one point where Montreal had it going right to left on your screen. 8-6 was the score. There were at least 3 turnovers in that point. Montreal's D-line just couldn't work it up. I was like, they should just try to huck it and try to make something happen because it's not working. They're having short field turnovers. And Furious actually ends up scoring on O, and it goes 8-7, but it could have been 9-6. And so from that 8-7 point, it was like Furious is cruising out there. And yeah, Montreal, you were in that game. Honestly, like, I even said this to Morgan Hibbert. I was like, I kind of thought Montreal was going to win. And he's like, seriously? And he looked at me, and obviously because he has that Furious pedigree of a long-standing, I'm surprised I admitted to him in person. He's a lot taller than I thought. But I was just like, hey, I thought they might sneak out the victory, sneak out the dub. But Montreal, very impressed with you. Obviously, I've been singing their praises, commentating them in the AUDL. Their O-line was essentially the same. They added Hayden Stone, who we just mentioned, or previously mentioned, missing for McGill. And their O-line was clicking early, like for sure. They were like doing really well. It was a great game. And so I don't want to say my beef, but I misled people. I was like, hey, if Mephisto loses, they'll play the winner of GOAT Phoenix. And then I was told I was wrong because if GOAT wins this third place game, since they already lost to Mephisto, the Mephisto score counts, that game counts, and Mephisto gets a bid. And I was just like...
But that wasn't going to happen in women's. Like if we had already beaten Iris, for example, in the original schedule and we had lost to Sixers in the finals, we were supposed to have played Iris again.
Yeah.
So that's weird.
Anyways, I was not happy about that. I was kind of like perturbed. Because at regionals, as you know, like Charlie Eisenhood, Ultiworld, Deep Look, he talks about this, like how there's like, if you play in the regional final and you lose, and then you play in the second place game and you lose, it's called like the lose-lose see ya, like you don't make nationals. So I think you should have the opportunity. So anyways, people start to crowd around the Goat Phoenix game. We actually streamed this on our Instagram. I bet you it was super blocky like the last time I streamed. But it was like crazy atmosphere. Everyone was like, realized something cool was happening. Phoenix had it on offense. Deep pull. They have a turnover short field. Goat's kind of dinking it in and around Phoenix's end zone. Turnover. Nick Boucher slaps it down. Phoenix gets another opportunity. Flying layout block by Jackie Howe, who actually gets hurt on that point. I believe he comes off. And then Goat eventually like quickly punches it in and wins and gets bronze. But Phoenix was this close to getting third and then playing Mephisto in the for the bid. So my heart just breaks for the Ottawa Crew because I have friends on that team. I know a few people on that team, and just hearing the story, like they were 11-10 to Furious, Universe to Goat on offense, 2 opportunities. Tough. That's all I gotta say. Tough.
Yeah,
game.
You did much better than I did, and on the picks, at least I got Goat, Phoenix, and AFC right, but you got 4 out of 5 correct in the top 5. You got all 8 of the quarters right. I only got 7 of the quarters right. So, I got all the semis right.
Yeah, so that's good. I was told that this was a little bit easier division to pick, and I would kind of agree. Like the discrepancy between kind of the top teams and the bottom teams in Open, like are pretty like. And as I would say it's the same in the women's. We talked about how mixed was probably the most like quote unquote open division where like anything could happen. But yeah, I'll pat myself on the back. 8 out of 8 quarters right, 4 to 5 top 5 right. But I will say I was wrong with one team that just kind of bottomed out. General Strike. I don't know what happened. I was talking to some people about it. Sounds like Jesse Greenberg got hurt. Cam Burden, something happened with him as well. But yeah, like I don't know what happened to you guys because you were semis team in 2019. And you finished 8th. So I know some people may have been shocked that a small team from Durham, Ontario, Hound, was able to defeat General Strike in the 7th place game. But maybe their heads weren't even in it at that point. But I got Regiment right too, 10th. Come on. Their best finish ever. So congrats to you, Regiment. We were told some interesting facts. 4 people of their team was their first ever tournament. So that is insane. 7 first ever nationals. And so, yeah, they won Spirit. We'll get to that, but pretty cool stuff there.
Yeah, so as you said, Regiment ended up winning Spirit with an average score of 13.33, so that's quite high. And then Shrike, then Mephisto. So congratulations to those teams for playing hard all tournament long and also having integrity, knowing the rules, being a good communicator on the field. We did have 2 teams finish below 10, and one of them we know was in kind of a chippy game, and Phoenix finishing low. I don't know why that would be.
I was trying to look. I think it's like 1 or 2 games where they were given like an 8 or something. So yeah, that's what happened. But yeah, I mean, the Spirit scores aren't too bad. Like you didn't see like, a 9 or 9.5 or something, but yeah, kudos to Furious, of course. I did pick that victory. You picked Mephisto over Furious, which almost happened, by the way. So I did get someone say like, Danie with the spiciest pick, picking Mephisto over Furious, but it did almost happen. So hey, you were close. But that kind of wraps up the recap. I know I didn't write this in the note, so I'm just going to say it out loud. Almost the Vancouver sweep. I wonder who wrote that. So yeah, that's true.
Sorry, everybody else. We were so close.
Almost the Vancouver sweep, but there you go. And we did some picks, but we also had other people pick, and so just wanted to. We never kind of like announced on the pod, but we'll do it now of who won. So First of all, if you partook, I think there's over 70 people that partook there, Danie.
Even my mom did it. My mom didn't finish last, did she?
No, I don't think so. Some people finished last because they just didn't know, like they just didn't pick properly. So they picked like one team to make the semis, but they didn't pick them to make like the quarters. So like you automatically lose points by doing that. So anyways, it was very close, I will say, with 3 people coming tied for first. So Danie, you know how we made those tiebreaker games? I will admit on the podcast there, I actually got one of them wrong. So I introduced a game that wasn't actually going to happen. So I said, who's going to win the red flag Gazpacho game or something like that? And people are like, Theo, that game's not actually happening. So I messed that up. But either way, we had the 2 other tiebreakers and they worked out. So 3 players coming in with 580 points. It's someone we've had on the podcast, Daniel I, otherwise known as Eye to Eye Photography. He was all over there at the tournament shooting pictures. Noah Bailey and Austin Yen. Do you know Austin Yen by chance?
Yeah, I do. He's U20 Open team, and he coached for Elevate last summer. So
nice.
Shout out to Austin Yen.
Yeah, you came in. You came tied for a first, but unfortunately, you picked Strike to beat AFC in the tiebreaker, which did not happen, and you picked Stella to beat Fusion, which also did not happen. So you automatically knocked out. And then Noah, you picked Strike to beat AFC, which did not happen, but you picked Fusion to beat Stella 11-7. But Daniel, you win because you picked AFC to beat Strike 11-10, and the final score was 12-10 AFC.
Well, that's pretty good.
So by proxy of how close you were, you win the tiebreaker, and you win a 1-year subscription to Ultiworld. You can watch all the games you want, listen to a subscriber-only segment that we're going to even have today. So congrats to you. You have the most Canadian Ultimate knowledge. That's all
More
I got
than
to
us.
say.
And we're supposed to be the experts now. So
Apparently we're the
that's
experts,
the thing.
so that's true.
This, you know what? Okay, one thing I need to shout out us for is that we did this all in one take. We didn't stop recording. We went from intro to news to main event.
Wait, you're letting
Pretty
people in
proud
on
of
a
us.
secret right now, which is that we often do this episode on multiple, not just takes, but like segments. So we'll record something, and sometimes you'll notice we'll wear something different, or like maybe our hair has changed. But sometimes we've even recorded over multiple days. So, hey, we care about our audience, and we're going to tell you all the secrets. You know, there's no secrets now between us, you, Danie, and the audience, or myself, Danie, and the audience. We just record this in one take, so we're excited about it. We're fired up. Less editing for our sweet editor, who we've never shouted out. So why don't you tell everyone who our editor is? Because normally podcasters share who their editor is every episode. So we should do that, and we will right now.
Yeah, so it's Aiden from Ultiworld, and we do talk to him on the podcast, but you probably don't hear that because he edits it out. So every time we make a mistake, we're apologizing profusely. But you're the real deal. Shout out. You can't cut this part out. It's very important. Aiden, you rock.
Yeah,
Aiden.
Aiden.
You can.
Yeah, we don't rock. You're the one who rocks because you edit all this stuff. So, yeah, appreciate everyone tuning in. And so, Danie, we got subscriber only. We're going to talk about jerseys, a brief segment on that. I saw some sweet jerseys, saw some jerseys as well that I did not like. So we'll share that on the subscriber only. So if you want to hear that, you got to get one of those subscriptions. But if you're Daniel, you don't because you already got it. Maybe we'll do something like this for university. I don't know if we'll be able to give away a full year subscription again because, you know, that's pretty a big prize. We'll maybe give away something else and do some university picks. But what do we got next week?
Yeah, next week we will have representation from each of the winning teams from this last weekend for senior UCI and nationals. We'll call it nationals on the podcast. So we're going to have people from Red Flag, people from Furious, and people from Sixers or persons from Sixers and person from Furious. And we're going to be breaking down kind of how the experience was for them. And we're going to have a really good time. So you should be there. And in that episode, we will also be doing a preview of CUUC in Brampton, Ontario.
Yeah, I don't know how we're going to do picks for that, Danie, because I haven't seen these. Like, do I just give UBC the title right away? I don't know. Like, it's going to be tough. Manitoba's going to be good. There's some good East Coast teams out here. East Coast as in Ontario, Quebec. So we're going to see what happens. I already know who Danie's going to pick. So we're not even have to do that part. But yeah, tune in for that. Obviously, social media, I don't need to plug that too much because you're probably following us on the platforms. So please do that. and stick around for the subscriber only where we talk about jerseys. You know, I'm not going to say the word that you like to use. This was a long but good episode full of
Girthy.
info. Oh my
It was
goodness.
girthy. A girthy episode.
Hey, this is why we started the podcast, talk about Real Ultimate, and we just spent, what was it?
An hour and 20 minutes.
Yeah, talking about one tournament. So that was super fun. Thank you for listening to our voices and caring about what we talk about. It actually means a lot to us.
Thank you.
Hey, this is Josh Kerr, captain of Winnipeg's PBHG, your 2021 Ultimate Canada Invitational silver medalists in the mixed division, and you're listening to the Huckin podcast, your coast-to-coast guide for all things Canadian Ultimate.